Welcome to Sipping Sense, Sips and Swigs, a monthly edutainment podcast designed to introduce you to intriguing and unique people and innovations in the wine world. Are you thinking of starting your own venture in the wine and spirits sector? Or are you an entrepreneur that works with the industry? You don't want to miss these pearls of wisdom you might find here from our guests. My name is Stephanie Brown, and author of Sipping Sense, Uncorking the Flavors of Wine, Entertaining, and Healthy Cooking. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Ron Childs, media strategist from OMEN Communications. Hi, Ron. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, Stephanie, first of all, thank you for such a warm welcome, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you for several months. Today, we're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about the podcast. We're going to discuss your journey and how things are going thus far. So let's start with the book, if we may. And Sipping Sense has been out for a little while now. Are you pleased with the response to it? And what exactly has the response been from your friends, from family, from your readers, and from media? What has the response been thus far?
So far, Ron, the response has been well received. I wouldn't call it amazing quite yet, but well received. I think from July to now, I've sold a fair amount of books. But I think what I find is that the best way to sell the books is face to face. Even though I've had great media, thanks to you and some other friends in the industry, it does not spark sales. So I feel like me being in the room, selling the book, talking about why I wrote the book, and actually sharing some of the recipes in the book along with some of the wines in the book really is what ignites people to actually purchase the book.
Understood. And I think one of the things that I find so interesting about it is it has such an education focus, but also a cultural mindset as well. It speaks to family recipes that are part of your personal heritage, but also discusses wine pairings and how to put wine with food, the foods that we all love and enjoy and that are traditions for us. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of the book and how it came about, how you were first inspired to pull it together, and then how we got to where we are today, where we have evolved into a podcast?
Yes. So, I did a little whining there about I haven't sold as many books as I wanted to sell, but I know selling books is hard. There are a lot of books out on the market, and I have other friends that have written books, and they probably have some of the same experiences that I have. But the book itself is a celebration of my family legacy around entertaining and fellowship. I've been doing entertaining and fellowship for a while, starting back when I started with Divas Uncorked and created the wine club that turned into a consortium that turned into I call Hobby Gone Amok. All during that time, I we were doing all kinds of events and meeting all kinds of folks and helping the industry really reach women and people of color. And over the past couple of years, I stepped back and said to myself, why does that matter? Why do I even like entertaining? Why does that matter so much to me? I started to think about my mom, my grandmother, and my great grandmother, and just thinking about all the times that we had family outings, family dinners, stopping by my grandmother's after church, and she would always fix something for us to have, whether it was coffee cake, pound cake, homemade rolls. It didn't matter. There was always something there. And that really got me to thinking that this is actually my legacy and that I love entertaining because that's how I grew up. And the wine club was an inspiration from my mother's bridge club. My mom used to have bridge club once a month. They did rotate through her members, but when she had it, I can remember all the laughter and the fun that she was having with her girlfriends. And I wanted our wine club to be like that. So it's really an homage to my grandmother, my mother, and my great grandmother. And then there's my wine journey. Said a little bit about Divas Uncorked, but my wine journey has been amazing. It started, one evening at a bistro with a bunch of girlfriends looking at a wine flight going, I don't even know what these wines are. And that turned into, let's have a wine club. And that turned into us really meeting some of the most amazing people in the industry and creating Divas Uncorked. And Divas Uncorked became public only because a bunch of our friends were saying, you guys are having so much fun. How come you can't share that with us? So it's really just been a journey from the very beginning. I enjoyed the industry so much that I did open the wine store. Obviously, I opened it at the most unopportune time there ever was, which I didn't know at the time. But, the market fell out, we had a recession, and the first 3 or 4 years of the store was wonderful. And then it just became, I had to make a decision. And obviously making that decision to close the store, it was a very hard one because that was my baby. I had built it from scratch, from the ground up, and I just had so many plans and aspirations for it. But everything's a lesson, and there's no regrets because I enjoyed it along the way. And here I am now with Sipping Sense, which is, I think, my way of giving back.
Mhm.
I know that what I've experienced throughout the course of my wine journey, I would say we were probably 10, 15 years too early because now the industry really has a lot of people that look like me. And I think that they're treating those people a little bit better. And there are a lot more different jobs out there other than just being a winemaker where women and people of color can contribute to the industry. We're still only 0.2% of the industry, but probably back when I started, we weren't even on the map. So I'm really excited about where people in this industry can go. And if I can help in any kind of way, that's why I'm here.
Understood. No, thank you for that. I appreciate that in everything that you're doing. You count it as part of your legacy and your family heritage, and you're lifting up the roles of African Americans in this business. And speaking of that, what would you say is kind of the status of Black men and women in the wine industry? Are they progressing? Are they continuing to see traction as they touch on various facets of the business, from owning wineries to starting their own labels to owning stores and so forth? What kind of progress are you seeing now in such an industry that has such a global face to it?
So I would say there's progress. I think there's a lot of progress that has happened over the last 4 years. George Floyd ignited a lot of that, like he ignited a lot of that in a bunch of different industries. But I think the African American Vintners Association was able to make a name for itself during that time, which in turn helped brands and people make a name for themselves because they were able to work with some of the larger organizations and conglomerates that are white owned to help spearhead the businesses that existed already, but now had someone to help them hit the market. I think we still have a long way to go because it's a hard industry. It's a hard industry for anybody. So, then you put on top of that being a person of color. The industry itself is very family owned, and a lot of businesses that have been in this business have been in the business for centuries in many cases, especially if you go outside of the United States. In the United States, it's late 1800s when, a lot of the wineries and the spirit organizations popped up. I mean, you think about the history of Uncle Nearest, and when he was the distiller, back in the late 1800s, we couldn't even be distillers or head distillers.
Right.
So, it's just a legacy for families in most cases. And then now a lot of those families have sold to conglomerates, and now they own, lots and lots and lots of brands. I always say, if you walk in a wine store, you walk in, say you walk in Total Wine, which is one of the big national chains, you walk in Total Wine and you look at all of the different brands on the shelves. How do you choose?
Right.
And so most of what is being chosen today is coming through stories. I read an article in Wine Enthusiast, and they're talking about the millennial and the Gen X generation and how they actually are thinking about how they actually make brand choices. And a lot of it comes from stories. And if you think about small businesses, it's very hard to get your story out there because you don't have a whole lot of money. It's an opportunity for people like me who want to be ambassadors for those folks to get their stories out there, which is why I thought the podcast would be a great way to do that. I launched Sips and Swigs, and the goal of Sips and Swigs is just to introduce people to as many people as I possibly can, help people understand the journeys of those folks. And then also, if you're wanting to start your own business, maybe you'll get a few tips on what not to do in order to be more successful.
Right. Right. Marketing and public relations are very similar, but their goals and objectives are usually different, as well as their tactics as to how they achieve what their objectives are. On the marketing side, it tends to be more about selling and moving a product or professional service, whereas on the PR side, it tends to be more about protecting a reputation, building a reputation, reputation management, crisis communications, and so forth. And it's different from marketing in that in marketing, you very much control your message because you do that via certain promotions that you do and social media engagement, advertising, and so forth. Whereas on the PR side, you don't fully control the message. It's more dependent upon the trust that you place in journalists and their audiences. And it's not really directly selling, but it is leveraged to drive sales. So they do have a lot of similarities. They're similarities, but they're also different tactically as to how you execute them. And that's been my approach with respect to helping you move the book. So since July of last year, I think the book has been received very well by media. Wanted to find out from you, though, what you feel are some of the challenges that you had with getting this first book out the door, and is there perhaps a volume 2 coming that we can start creating buzz around and driving ongoing buzz for not just Sipping Sense, but also Sips and Swigs?
So thank you for the definition between marketing and PR, because I think a lot of people get that mixed up. I know I do.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Many, many people. You'd be surprised how many people equate marketing and PR. I mean, although there are a lot of synchronicities between them, if it's done effectively, they are distinctly different. And we've been leaning in with respect to your book on the PR and media relations side, and working on building the reputation, building ongoing buzz for the Sipping Sense book. But we also have in our hip pockets, a whole marketing strategy that we can engage, especially when we have vehicles like Sips and Swigs now to help.
Right, right. So getting the book out the door was hard because I self-published. And when you self-publish, you don't have anybody pushing you but yourself.
Right.
And so I started, it probably took me about 2 years. I was cultivating recipes along the way, and it took me a couple ways to think about which way was I going to go, what was going to be, I call the flow of the book, and what did I want people to get out of the book after they picked it up. And so it took me a while to hone in on that. I probably eliminated a good 50 pages of recipes because they just didn't flow into the topics and the subjects that I wanted to cover in the book. But once I had my head in the book and really working with someone around design and organization of the content, then I would say it probably was a good 8 months. First draft to, okay, it's ready to go. and finding a way to actually get the book out to market and looking at different companies that did self-publishing and then landing on Amazon. That took a little while as well. Am I pleased with how I got there? Yes, because I actually forced myself to, I wanted to make the summer market last year. And so my goal was to be ready by August of 2024. I was published around mid-July, give me time to create some buzz around a launch. And, it all happened. And, like I said earlier, I've sold probably about 500 books, and it's not even been a year yet. And so to me, I feel like that's good. And I'm happy about that. Yeah.
Very good for a self-published author.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Um, do I have another book in me? Yes, but I don't know if it'll be a lifestyle book.
Okay.
I've been thinking about the legacy of my family,
Hmm.
the way some of the heirlooms were passed down. So I started documenting recipes and started thinking about some different topics. I talk a lot about wine is paired with sauces and spices. And I talked about, well, maybe something around soups, spreads, and spices. Is there something there that I can do? There's a lot to think about.
Well, the next phase of our campaign in promotion of your book via public relations will involve, a lot of public visibility. So if you will, could you talk a little bit about your travels over the past few months, as well as what you have on tap this next quarter, the summer and the fall, what your travels entail and what events that you're planning to attend and be visible at?
So I love to travel and I love to throw in wine journeys while I'm traveling. I had the opportunity to go to Australia and New Zealand this past January. I'm a big professional tennis fan, and so the Australian Open was my last leg of the Grand Slams to do. So while I was there, I visited vineyards in Australia and visited vineyards in New Zealand, and boy, did I get a history. And that was extremely interesting. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to the French Open and I did a side trip to Burgundy. And I've always wanted to do the vineyards in France. And so that was lovely. And, I've never been a big French wine drinker before I went to Burgundy. I mean, I liked French wines, but it seemed like the ones we got over here, they all kind of seem to taste all the same to me. And maybe that's because I wasn't spending enough money, but either way, that's how I felt. But the wines in Burgundy were amazing, especially the white wines. So they converted me. Bordeaux and Burgundy are very obviously the original regions for most of the grapes that are grown around the world. I've been to Chile and Argentina when I owned the store. And, there's a lot of great places even in the United States. New York has a wine country, Virginia has a wine country, Connecticut has a wine country. So there's a lot to see and a lot to learn about the cultures and the regions and the terroirs and the environment where grapes are grown all over the world. And to me, it's just a history lesson.
Yeah, it's like anywhere you go, you find vineyards. Having touched so many facets of the wine business over these years, is there anything that you would say you have learned? I'm sure you've learned a lot, but anything that you would do differently in how you approached the business overall?
Oh boy, there's a whole bunch of because I owned a retail store,
Mm.
I probably would have approached how I brought that retail store to life a lot differently now than I would have back then. So that's probably for another episode because there's a lot behind opening
Okay.
that store. We could
Sure.
do another whole episode on that. I think just understanding the market a lot better and really honing in on who is my target audience and being very dogmatic about how I approach whatever it is I'm creating for that audience and doing the research that you need to do to understand, who are your competitors in the marketplace and how are you going to be different than those competitors. I think the wine business itself, there are so many great wines out there. I just believe people who jump into this business, they really just really need to know what it is they're trying to sell and why they're trying to sell it and why would anybody buy it. And there are so many different ways to get into the business nowadays. And so you think about if you're a big celebrity and you've got this massive celebrity name, you can bring a brand to market and use your celeb to make it happen versus somebody who just might be really good at creating a wonderful taste and high quality wine, but it never sells because you have to figure out how to get it into people's hands. So there's just so many different ways to bring things to market, and there's a wide range of consumers, and you just have to figure out, well, what part of that range of consumers is going to buy your wine or your spirit. And that's why I talked earlier, your stories, I think stories just sell,
Well,
but you still have to do that other research.
right, right. And your media relations strategy, I mean, you've appeared in television, you've done radio, you've done magazines, you've done, of course, online media, social media engagement. Your website has been updated and is seeing increased traffic and so forth. So I'm happy to see that you're digging into the podcast universe and everything that it has to offer, as well as other categories of media as media continues to evolve. Do you want to just kind of remind your listeners and people who are new to Sips and Swigs exactly how to get the book?
Yes. So again, the name of the book is Sipping Sense, Uncorking the Flavors of Wine, Entertaining and Healthy Cooking. It's a lifestyle book. It's a how-to book, and it is definitely got a fair amount of funny stories in it about me and my family and what's happened to me along my wine journey. So just pick up the book. It's $24.99 off of Amazon. You can always reach out to me if you would like to do a book signing or a book event. I'm happy to work with people and come anywhere that I am able to sell the book. My website is sippingsense.com. The podcast is Sips and Swigs, and it can be found on Spotify and Apple. And I am talking to Martha's Vineyard television station about potentially doing some work with them, bringing wine and food to the station in some form or fashion. So there's a bunch of projects underway. We'll just see what happens.
There's a lot percolating, so let's just remind folks that up-to-date information about your upcoming events and so forth can be found on the Sipping Sense website, or they can stay tuned to Sips and Swigs for more details as they continue to evolve.
You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, or you can join my Sipping Sense community on Facebook as well.
Wonderful.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, Ron.
Of
It's been
course,
a pleasure.
always keeping culture at the forefront.
Correct, correct.
Well,
So
cheers.
thank you.
You're welcome.